Hello, everyone. This is Precious Joy coming at you tonight. I hope you all have had a wonderful start of your weekend. I am actually just now getting settled with my day and starting getting settled from the duration of my day. So a lot has been going on, but I'm super excited to come before you tonight and actually begin to talk to you about some things that has transpired, and even about, the writing and the video that I did called When God Interviews You. And so it has been absolutely amazing. I've been getting so many hits on that video and even on that writing, and people's lives have been transformed and their lives are being changed by it. I am so excited. The stories are steady coming in. I'm steady hearing good reports and good testimonies and things that's been very open and coming to the forefront concerning people and their lives. They're looking at things from a completely different perspective. And so it blesses me that you all are actually being blessed by the very things that their blog talked about and discussed. So for those of you that probably did not know what the writing was about or even what the video was about, it was mainly about me discussing some things that I went through when I was in high school and when I was in grammar school, and how they actually tainted my perspective on how I viewed relationships and even how I viewed men, and not necessarily all men, but certain complexions. And so I went into completely defensive mode where I was trying to protect my daughters. And if you notice in the video, I did mainly state my daughters because girls tend to have it harder than men do when it comes down to the looks department. And so I was really trying to protect my daughters from having to walk through and experience some things that I did that was very hurtful in my upbringing and very hurtful just in my childhood. And so that video has literally rocked, and I'm super excited. So the questions started to come in, and I just wanted to do a Facebook Live because I wanted you all to actually be able to get a perspective and an understanding from a different viewpoint. Because I know that when you do videos and when you do writings, there are going to be questions that are left unanswered. And just the fact that people started to submit questions to me was absolutely amazing, because it allowed me to see that my journey and some of the things that I went through was not done in vain. It actually allowed for me to be able to take it all in and see that people really do want to actually be healed, and people really want to see life from a different viewpoint and even from a different perspective. So I don't have any intentions of holding you all night or late, or I really just want to breeze through the top 5 questions that I received from some people and just actually bring some perspective and some clarity. And so one of my questions that I got was that, how did you know it was an issue and not a preference in the terms of the type of men you preferred? And basically how I knew it was an issue and not a preference was because, if I be honest, I have not been on many dates. I have not dated different races or different type of guys. So I really don't know what it is that I want. I just basically did this whole type of perspective over some things that I went through in my childhood, to the fact that I decided that I wouldn't even give men of a darker complexion even a shot, because I wanted to prevent my children from being mistreated or being talked down at or feeling as if they were less than, because that's how I felt. And so that was how I knew it was mostly an issue, because my preference is still uncertain. If I be honest with you, I don't know what I really want as far as a complexion or as far as a man is concerned. I'm more so open to whatever it is that God thinks is best for me at this particular time in my life. And so when it came down to the issues, the issue was that I wanted to prevent my children from having to experience some type of hurt or some type of pain, just out of just wanting to be a good mother one day. I didn't want my children to have to come and tell me, "Mom, this was said to me," or "Mom, why is this being said to me?" or "Why is this being done to me? Why are people treating me differently?" And so for me, it possessed as an issue, because I felt like that was one of my deepest issues that I had within myself. I didn't want for them to have to walk through the very thing that I walked through. So to me, my mindset had put up all these type of different roadblocks and said, prevent this at all costs. This cannot happen, and we will not allow this to happen for our kids. And so it didn't have anything to do with as far as men in general. It was just mostly about complexion. So as I stated before, I believe that there are some very good, nice looking, handsome, dark skinned men. And even when they would come and approach me, I've had like literally well qualified men that would come to me. And these were guys that were 6'3", like athletic build, tall and handsome, and what most women pretty much would want. Because I know that that's one of the biggest things that women describe. I've had those guys because of my line of work and where I work at. I see them all the time, and I've had them actually come and approach me. But because of the complexion of their skin, I couldn't move past that. And a lot of times I actually did shut them down. I would maybe, give out my number or whatnot, and we would have maybe a couple of phone call conversations and things of that nature. But in my mind, I literally could not get past the fact that this was a darker skin complexion man, and that we probably would not have good looking kids if we went down that road. And so it wasn't necessarily an insecurity on their end that I felt that they couldn't produce it. The insecurity was on my end. I didn't feel like that I can produce it. I felt like I would probably drop the ball on my end. And that was mainly because my self-esteem was so low. It was so shot, and it did not have the type of substance and weight that it should have had for me to be actually rooted and grounded in God and in how he views me and his perspective. And so my perspective was based off of what people had said to me, the things that had happened to me in my childhood. And so I took that, I held it deep within, and I just took it as if that was like the certified check. And I knew in my mindset that I would not allow for myself to be, I would not allow for my children to have to go down that road. And so that was such the wrong perspective, and that was such the wrong attitude and demeanor to have. And so that's how I knew that it was more so of an issue and not necessarily a preference. When I see men, I think that they are equally handsome. I really do. And so, and if I would be honest with you, had I not had that type of wound, and had I not went down that path where those things had hurted me in the past, I don't believe that I would even be having this type of discussion. I think that I would be more so one that would be open to, different races or different complexions or whatnot. But the good thing is that this is something that God has brought to the forefront of me. And so because he brought it to the forefront of me, it makes me think that perhaps this is definitely something that needs to be dealt with. Also that we can actually move past this place, and that if God decides to present someone to me that is of a darker skin complexion, I will not be perplexed, and I definitely would not be uncomfortable and possibly even sabotage the relationship because I couldn't get past the complexion. And so the good thing is that now I'm totally fine. I don't have any issues in regards to that, and I'm more open to the idea and even to the possibility than I have ever been before. And as I stated, even in the video, that was something that I talked to even to other people, whether they were mentors or other friends, and they always mentioned to me, like, Precious, you got to be more open. And I would be like, I ain't really trying to hear that right now. It would literally go in at one ear and out the other. And that's because I wasn't in that space to actually be able to hear any wise counsel in regards to the complexions of different men, of me being open to them, mainly because the wound was still there, and it was really still so deep about what I had went through when I was in high school and even in college. I mean, not college, but even in grammar school. So that was the first question. Now, the second question was that it says that that's good that God brought that concern up to you, but doesn't God give us the desires of our hearts anyway? I do believe that God gives us the desires of our hearts. However, I do believe that there is a difference that we need to learn between godly desires and uncircumcised desires. And so for me, I believe that godly desires is anything that edifies, uplifts, think purpose, is pure in nature, hope in all things good. Those are like godly desires. But when we have uncircumcised desires, we actually seem to find things that are wrong and deem them right. Is always not well thought out, and we need to run it by others that have more wisdom than what we tend to do. And we really don't care how it thinks, how it affects others. So that's when it's an uncircumcised desire. And so when I think about that, let me tell you how exactly how uncircumcised my desire really was when it came down to like me wanting to be with a lighter skin complexion man or something like that. I literally wanted this guy, whoever he was, and he probably don't even exist, literally. I wanted for him to be like this fine, light skinned, tall, athletic built guy that had to, just be perfect in stature. I didn't care if he was African American. I probably wanted him to be what we call a swirl, where he was mixed. And so I kind of wanted him to be very, because I still wanted to necessarily be with an African American man, but I wanted him to have that twist to him, because I just think that that's just like one of the cutest things or whatever. And so I wanted him to be like that, but I wanted him to be so fine to the fact that other women gulped at him when they saw him. I wanted him to be so fine that I wanted other women to like look and say, she snatched him. And then my attitude would be like, yeah, I got him. I can pull him. And that was because my self-esteem was super low, that I felt like that would build me up. That would give me the type of confidence and the type of self-esteem that I needed, that yes, Precious Joy Frazier could pull a man like that. And so I had to see how uncircumcised that desire was, because that's like unrealistic. Why would I want? Of course, you want your someone you're going to be with, your spouse, to be handsome, but why would I want other women to where they're practically throwing themselves at him? And then on top of that, bringing in a whole nother level of insecurities that was definitely going to come with that. And not only just insecurities, it was going to break my self-esteem down more and more and more, because with me thinking that I was going to be able to handle it, God forbid if he, had a fall or slipped over one of them, that was just going to devastate me even more. And so now it would have been as if like, yeah, I was able to get this man, but I wasn't able to keep him, or I got him with the wrong type of perspective and mindset. And so I think that was one of the biggest things that I recognized with this, is that was like what was driving it. Because of the hurts and the devastations that I had when I was younger and in school, I wanted to be able to say that I was able to marry this fine type of model type of guy. And yes, Precious Joy was able to pull him, and that he chose me out of all the other women. And so that was such an uncircumcised desire. Whereas to the fact that I didn't even have the godly desire towards a certain mate. I didn't even think like he needs to be one that his purpose helped drives minds, and that we are more so on the same page as far as what God wants us to do with our lives, that we're on the same page as far as what God wants to take us. I wasn't even thinking like that. It was more so just about having that trophy husband, because, even like how men think of trophy wives from time to time, I wanted to have that trophy husband and all the little pretty kids that lined up right behind us. And so I seen how God had to actually, talk to me even about that. Like, your desire is even off in that area. Your desire is not pure in nature. Your desire is not hoping in all things good. It's more so trying to build you a level of self-esteem and comfort within yourself that's eventually, that's going to be, built on sand, because it's definitely not going to be stable. And it's going to eventually bring me to a whole nother level of hurt and devastation than what it would have been had I would have actually, focused on getting myself healed from the very jump, and building and developing godly desires in regards to what it is that God wants and what it is that I would like to see in a future, with a mate and things of that nature. And so, like, the biggest desire out of all things was just for me to have pretty kids. And when you're considering a mate, that's one of the things you want, but that should be like one of the things that you are least concerned about when it comes down to that. And so I know that, our purpose is supposed to help enhance and build each other. And so I think for me, that was like something that I wouldn't even be concerned about. I was just more so of trying to have this type of whole perspective of this guy just being perfect, other women wanting him, and yet I was the one who he chosen. And so just a completely flawed perspective. And now it's like, I'm like, wow, when I hear myself and when I see how I was thinking and how I was viewing things, it's like, I was really on a path where I was going to set myself up for some real danger and some real heartbreak had I not pulled it together soon. And so I'm pretty glad that God pulled my coattail on this one. And so we're moving right on to question number 3. The third question is, when you mentioned that when God interviews us, is to show us what's on the inside of us. How do you know when we are being interviewed? I think that that's a really, really good question, because a lot of times we don't know when we're being interviewed. However, one of the things that I realized is that whenever there's a question that is asked on the inside of you that you know didn't necessarily come from you, that's God interviewing you. I know I've spoke about it. I said there are times when I can hear God talking to me and he would say certain things and I would respond out loud as if he was literally standing right next to me. And so that's when God is communicating back and forth with me and he's interviewing me on some things or whatnot. And so it helps me to be able to understand, okay, now clearly based upon what the question was, I know the difference between when God is just making a statement and when God is actually proposing a question. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we have to understand the difference between. There's a difference when God is making a statement and proclaiming and declaring something over your life. And then there's a difference when God is actually questioning and actually calling your attention to something that's been doormat on the inside of you that he wants to pull from there and actually have you to confront it. And so I think that one of the best ways to be able to understand when God is interviewing you is that, of course, being more sensitive to his voice, being more sensitive to the spirit, training yourself how to hear his voice. And what I stated multiple times, even in the video and even throughout my website, throughout my writings, I talk about how one of the things that I do is I always try to start my day off with God and I try to end my day off with God, or I pick either one. If I can't get it in the morning or at night, I have to try to figure it out or get it in. And if I don't get it in, because there are days when I don't get to spend time with God, it's not that I don't know that I didn't. I purposely would acknowledge to God, like, God, I didn't even get a chance to spend time with you today. And I would apologize. I'd be like, I apologize. I'll make sure I get it in tomorrow. So it's like I'm training my mindset. I'm training my emotions. I'm training me to understand that quiet time, meditation, prayer, and studying of the word is necessary for me to be able to hear God and understand him. And when you develop that type of relationship with him, that's when you can tell the difference between an interview question and when there is just a statement, or, God is just trying to bring something up to the forefront. You will begin to understand what it is that he's doing within you, because you develop a completely different relationship with him, that you understand the differences between the questions that he asks you and the different ways of how he even approaches you, because God approaches us in many different facets. And so another thing is that one of the other ways where you know if you're being interviewed by God is that if it makes you question yourself multiple times, it's an interview question, because we're trying to find the best possible answer to present to others. And so anytime when you're steady, like, okay, in your mind, you're trying to find these different avenues of how to answer this question, or you're trying to find these different avenues of how to make this question fit your perspective or fit the right equation, then that's clearly God interviewing you, because now he's trying to get you to see how off something may be within yourself. And so that's like the biggest cue right there, because as I stated, even in the writing, when you get ready to do interviews, you anticipate certain questions that they're going to ask you. And so you try to prep yourself, you try to get yourself lined up and try to think of the best possible answers. And so that's like one of the biggest things. I think that whenever you're trying to find a way or find different answers, then that's clearly God trying to get you to see something from a completely different perspective. He's trying to get you to answer a question from multiple viewpoints. And then because eventually when you really pay attention to how you're answering the question and looking at it from multiple viewpoints, you're going to realize that something was off here. And that was exactly what happened with me, with God talking to me about why wouldn't I, date or court a dark-skinned man. That was simply when I answered that question to God and, just out loud to myself, I knew something was off there that did not sound right. And I was like, hold on, wait. Finally, the door had opened for me to answer, for the question to be answered properly, so that it can bring the type of healing that was needed to be brought to my life. And so I'm totally grateful for that. And so we're going to move on to the next question. We're almost done. I'm going to try to wrap this up soon. Outside of fear of having children by a darker complexion man, were there other ways that you encountered? Were there other ways that the encounters you had about your looks at the time interrupted other possible relationships? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this one is probably going to be one of my most vulnerable answers that out of all of them. Yes, this was something that had interfered and interrupted with other relationships, especially my friendships, because of how I felt that, because of my own insecurities that I had of like how I looked and things of that nature. I always had this thing where I had to hang out with nothing but pretty girls. I didn't want nothing else around me. You had to be pretty. And all my friends were pretty that I always hung out with. And so I felt like, whenever you gather yourself amongst other pretty women, that's how you become or whatever. And so that was one of the biggest things for me. However, even I've burnt so many bridges over the years. Like I've just gotten rid of friendships without explanations. I gotten rid of friendships just because. But I think the main ones that I did get rid of were ones that were very hurtful and detrimental to me because I didn't know how to properly bounce back from them. But here's one of the things that, that I'm going to be 100% honest and transparent on in my relationships and in my friendships with just people from high school and even people like from, just growing up from out of grammar school and things of that nature. I did not care about what we said to each other or things of that nature because of my own insecurities about how I looked and how I felt I looked to people and from things that I was told. If you said that I was ugly, and it did not matter if you were joking, if you were playing, if it was a joke, if that word came out of your mouth to me and you said that I was ugly, I ended the friendship. And I really did not care about how good of a friend you may have been to me. I didn't care how good of a friend I may have been to you because that was such a soft spot to me. If that came out of your mouth, I was done with the whole friendship as a whole. I didn't want to have nothing else to do with you. I was ready to move on. There was no forgiving that. That right there was probably the most unforgivable sin at that particular time in my life. And so if you mentioned to me about my looks, anything like that, I was done. I was literally done with you. And I think that that's so interesting because I think back to like even when I was in my younger 20s or whatnot, I was like probably 19, 20, 21, 22 around that age. And so this was when I was still like, I had like that 1 foot in the church and 1 foot out. I was still kind of like in and out of clubs and things of that nature. That I would like to say that those were like my most funnest years. I called it my prime. I'd be like, that was my prime. And I think back to them club days and when I was out there and just like really having fun and things of that nature, I'd be like, that was my prime, baby. I had the best time. I have no regrets at all. But I think back to that because like, when you have those friends that you're, clubbing with and things of that nature, or, one of the things that the world addresses each other, or one of the things that the world addresses other females by is like, hey, B, or that's my B right there. And, we had that whole thing where you laughed and joked around about it or whatnot. And so to me, honestly, that didn't bother me. When they would be like, when they would introduce me or, this my B or hey, B, it was like, it was like, that was just normal dialogue. That's how we communicated. We laughed it off. We joked it off. I was cool with that. But if you said I was ugly, I was ready to get rid of you. How crazy is that? Like, that is so like, just like the whole type of mind frame and mindset behind it or whatever. I just could not handle that for some reason. And so, but I see how like nowadays, most people would be completely offended by that. I know I would. I honestly would be. And I don't have anyone in my life today that addresses me like that or that, the whole B thing. We don't do that no more. I don't do that no more. I don't dress women like that no more. And so, but just like I'm going back as far as how it was even in the past, it was like, how was I okay with people addressing me like, this my B or this B is my best friend and things of that nature, or whatever. But yet, if you said that, I was able to forgive that. That was nothing. But if you said that I was ugly, I was like, it didn't matter how close we was. That was the red flag. So I would end relationships like it was nobody's business. And if I would be honest with you, a lot of them didn't even know why I ended those relationships. Some of them would even say, I received Facebook inboxes. I received like different messages, because like I would go to the far extreme. Anytime when I would cut somebody off, or whether it was a guy or whether it was females or whatnot, if I cut you off, I was blocking your phone number. I was deleting you as a friend on Facebook. I blocked you on Facebook. I hope that you didn't know where I lived, so that you couldn't pop up at my house and ring my doorbell, because then I would be faced to actually confront whatever it was or whatnot. But I found it very easy to just cut off and sever all ties with people. And a lot of times I couldn't bring myself to be honest and to even say why I ended the friendship, because I didn't want them to know that I had those type of insecurities about how I looked. I didn't want them to know that I went through this hard point in my life when I was in grammar school and even high school, and that it really wasn't their fault that, you know, that I went through that, but I just didn't have the type of strength to actually talk about it and to actually be honest and vulnerable with them. And so because I didn't have that, it was more so easier for me just to say, you know what, this friendship ain't working for me. Without necessarily saying it, I would just completely end it. And I know that I hurt a lot of people when I did that, because a lot of them didn't understand the whole type of, they didn't understand why. And I just never was bold enough to even tell them why. And so I would have to say that that was one of the biggest things for me, how it interrupted a lot of my friendships. Because and then when you think about how those friendships was back in the days, they really was not friendships. But I think I just could have did a better job as a whole of even trying to, to actually call it a quits in certain relationships. I should have just been honest and saying, hey, this hurted me, this bothered me. I felt this type of way. I can't get past this, or, you know, why would you say this? I know that you don't mean anything hurtful or harmful, and you were just joking. However, can we not joke like that? I didn't have that type of courage and that type of strength to say it, because mainly I believe that anytime when I did say certain things, or I did address certain things, it always was like very confrontational, or it ended in some type of a confrontation. And so I just would always chalk it up and dust my hands off from it. And I tried to stay away from things that would blow up into confrontation, because I always felt like anything concerning me is always taken completely out of context, or I'm always the bad guy. Even when I'm trying to explain what has transpired or why this hurt me, I always felt like things flipped back and I was always the bad guy in situations. So to prevent that, I would just cut the relationship off completely, sever all ties, and then just call it a day like that. But I received emails and, you know, different things like that with people saying, well, I don't know why we fell out. I don't know why we stopped talking. Can you explain this to me? I don't know what happened. And I would just ignore the emails. So that was the biggest thing for me as to what my insecurities of how I looked has transpired, even in my personal life and even in my relationships, and even in how I perceive things and how I looked at. I did look at other people that were, you know, in quote unquote prettier, or in more of a different complexion, as always having more favor. And so that was something that I know that God has had to deal with me in regards to, or whatnot. In fact, I don't know why this is coming up now, but I even had a leader in a church one day where we would communicate and talk, and she was one who had the same type of mindset that I had. She had to have the light-skinned pretty guys or whatever, and she was one that had a very fair complexion. And she said herself that she didn't want no dark-skinned babies. And I was like, that's how I feel. And so for someone to even be a leader over me at that particular time that I trusted and that, you know, I served and things of that nature, for her to even have that type of perspective that that lighter skinned guys were better, or just like lighter skinned kids were better because things seemed to go better for them. And then me to be serving underneath her, and I knew her perspective on that, that actually helped, you know, scope me as well, from, because this was someone who was about 20 years, 25 years older than me, so that I even looked up to, that I admired. And so here I am feeling some type of way, or knowing that I have these issues, when she probably should have been one that was more so trying to encourage me in regards to how my beauty is as well, or just in regards to being as though, like, you know, it's well, you know, skin complexion doesn't mean anything. You would have thought that she would have been doing something or talking more in terms of that. But she had the same type of demeanor that I had or whatnot. And I think that that's why I felt more comfortable with opening up and talking to her about it, mainly because I knew for a fact that we bonded here in this particular area, but we should not have been bonding there. She should have been more supportive. She should have been more trying to help me see beauty from all different angles or whatnot. But when you are just as wounded and broken as someone else, you really can't help them either. And so our wounds and our brokenness just fed on each other. It's just played off each other. But I had no idea that it was more so, even that relationship with her was digging deeper and digging a deeper hurt and digging a deeper wound, even when I didn't know at the time. But now when I even sit back and I think about it or whatever, it's like, you know, the enemy kind of like had me really out there with skin complexions and colors, like, you know, thinking that there was something seriously wrong with certain complexions, when the seriously wrong thing was me the whole time, my viewpoint and my perspective. And so thank God for healing. Thank God for deliverance. And I am super happy that we are moving forward and that he has highlighted this in my life, because now I don't feel like it would be an issue, or if, you know, down the line, if something was to surface, or, you know, someone was to approach or anything like that, I feel like it would be like, okay, we can do this because God has already healed and delivered. And as long as he hands some fresh, it's going to be a-okay. Trust and believe that. And so that's about it. That's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap up this When God Interviews You. I do want to go into details a little bit real quickly about Purity is Precious' next move. Purity is Precious' next move, as far as a video is concerned, I've decided, because I know that this video was a little bit kind of, this video kind of shook some people and it kind of rocked the boat a little bit. And so I don't want to keep coming kind of strong on some videos, because trust and believe there's some stronger ones coming down the line, because I feel like I done hit a place in my life I ain't got nothing to hide. And so I really don't care. You're going to either have to come with this movement, or you're going to have to exit on out. But I know for a fact that there are going to be some stronger videos. There are some things that I really want to talk about that I don't believe is talked about often, and it's going to shock some people. So because of that, I decided to do another video. However, this is a more softer video. I'm going to go back into one of my earlier blogs that I had written, and that was the one when I wrote the letter to myself, and it was called Dear Little Me. And I encourage you to go listen to it. Well, you can't listen to it. You have to go and read it, because I didn't do the video just yet. I'll probably give me about a week and a half. It's a lot going on next week, but give me about a week and a half and I will have that video posted. As I stated, the title of that one is Dear Little Me. That was a letter that I wrote to myself. And I wrote this letter to myself because I was actually freeing myself of some things and of some bondages and of me having to be strong at all times. And so that letter was me being extremely vulnerable. That letter broke so many things up off of me, and it actually caused me to live my life now without apology. And so that's one of my favorite writings. I just read it to myself the other day and I started to tear up. And so we're going to go to that one. And I would like to encourage you all to submit me a letter that you write to yourself. I encourage you to write a letter to yourself where you are talking to the little girl in you that desires to be free, because we all got one, and no one is perfect. No one is perfect. So somebody got something that the little girl in them needs to be taught to and actually freed from some type of event, some type of tragedy or horrific experience that happened. And I encourage you to submit the letters to me. I want to have some of them featured in the next video. And it won't be the whole letter. I'll definitely keep it discreet. I won't release any names, anything like that. And you can even send them anonymously. But I would like to have certain different voices speaking those different letters or little pieces from them that I would think would enhance the video even more, because I want to actually get like the heartbeat of Dear Little Me to beating to a completely different level and a completely different dimension. And so that's the next move. I'm excited. I'm super excited. I'm just excited about what God wants to do. I'm excited about Purity is Precious. And if you have not had a chance to go see Purity is Precious and check out the website, go and do that. It is www.PurityIsPrecious.com. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you're more than welcome to do so. And that is @PurityIsPrecious. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you for being open to hear me speak today, and being open to listening, and being open to my stories, my flaws, and my all. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but this is one of the best seasons and the best places that I've been in my life in an absolutely long time. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will see you all soon.